Within the world of research, there is a form of reliability referred to as internal consistency. It helps to measure how strongly different sections of the same test agree with one another. For example, if people say they strongly agree that dogs and cats are awesome, you would expect those same people to strongly disagree if a different line item said dogs and cats are terrible. It's a pretty important concept when it comes to designing tests or questionnaires for research. If the test is not internally consistent, you can't reasonably assume that your overall data is worthwhile. This same concept is generally more flexible when it comes to our entertainment. We accept that the otherwise brutal antagonist of nearly every movie just happens to spare the hero of the story, so the movie can happen, as Ryan George would put it. We also have no trouble accepting weight limits to avoid being over-encumbered in our Bethesda RPGs without worrying too much about where we're stuffing 4 Imperial swords, 4 iron daggers, 2 iron war axes, 2 fur boots, 2 Imperial armors, 2 Imperial boots, 2 Imperial bracers, 4 Imperial light boots, 4 Imperial light bracers.
155 taters!
Okay, that'll be $680.
Okay.
Video game logic does not equate to real-world logic, and plenty of mechanics exist solely so the video game can happen. But for a research nerd like me, this makes it all the more special when a game actually does take strides to make its world internally consistent. For example, in Destiny, your Guardian is able to be revived again and again thanks to your ghost's connection to the Traveler. If your ghost is killed, as what happens to Kate 6, you are no longer able to be revived. These Guardians, referred to as being lightless, still carry on until their ongoing battle leads to their final death.
I'm coming home, Ace.
And in the Borderlands series, you're able to respawn thanks to digital reconstruction machines that also serve as checkpoints. True to the series' satirical nature, these machines are owned by corporations that take a percentage of your currency every time you have to use them.
Death is for poor people. Hyperion customers choose life.
Little details like this are by no means necessary, but they do help to flesh out the world in fun ways. Appropriately enough, my favorite example of internal consistency comes from a game whose plot is centered on research. A game that you likely overlooked if you've even heard of it to begin with. Scars Above. Scars Above was released on February 28th of last year to very mixed reviews. I won't pretend that it's above criticism. This is a AA title through and through, but the story it tells is one of the most original sci-fi outings on this side of Mass Effect. Before I jump into full spoiler territory, the overall premise is this. You are Kate Ward, one of the 4 members of the Sentient Contact Assessment and Response Team, astronauts whose current goal is to attempt to make contact with a gargantuan alien ship, dubbed the Metahedron, that recently entered Earth's orbit. The Metahedron suddenly activates, pulling the ship into an alien world where Kate awakens, separated from the ship and the rest of the crew. Shortly after awakening, she sees strange visions of an alien being and a malevolent entity that may have been responsible for the demise of their civilization. Kate uses her scientific expertise to both analyze the world around her and improvise ways to defend herself from the hostile creatures within it as she sets off in search of the rest of the crew. Kate's analyses and improvised gadgets are the first sign of how Scars Above handles world building in a way that makes the entire story feel internally consistent. She isn't finding random bullets strewn across the world, she is harvesting organic materials that are converted into the type of elemental damage being used. On top of that, major improvements to her weapon are created using a portable 3D printer after scanning and analyzing the world and its creatures. For example, the cryogenic attachment is able to be constructed once Kate has analyzed a native creature whose secretions are able to freeze the surrounding water. Within the first hour, we're given much more in-universe context to the game's mechanics than most studios ever bother with, but the revelations that come later in the game truly make the story stand out above the crowd. This is your last warning for full spoilers, but again, judging by the Metacritic and the OpenCritic, you probably don't care anyway, so here we go. When Kate reunites with Tamara, Tamara tells Kate, "I watched you die," to which Kate responds, "This place keeps bringing me back." This conversation is the first time the player is given any indication that Kate is consciously aware of that time you missed the dodge roll and got pummeled by an alien gorilla thing. Much like the earlier examples from Destiny and Borderlands, this would have been a cool reveal even on its own. the acknowledgement of a common video game element within the game's world. But it goes even further. As the story continues, we learn that the imposing antagonist, called the Custodian, was created by the race that inhabited this world until very recently. Their scientists had discovered commonalities in the DNA of several species, which they believed could be the code of life. Eager to explore this further, they began introducing nanotech-based mutations into the local wildlife, but it wasn't enough. They created the Custodian to continue creating more artificial mutations and compile more pieces of the code at a faster rate, eventually leading to it mutating its own creators. When there were no more mutations and pieces of code to be discovered on this world, the Custodian set its sights on another sentient world, Earth. When he brought the Scar ship onto this planet, one of the scientists and creators of the Custodian intentionally introduced her own consciousness into Kate, simultaneously labeling Kate as the control variable within the Custodian's experiment.
I am also using the nanomachines to grant the human a special status. The system will see them as a control variable, preventing mutation, permanent injury, and even death.
With that late-game revelation, nearly every aspect of the game and its world are united as one internally consistent whole. Kate didn't just happen to be able to regenerate and see alien visions, it was the last-ditch effort of a scientist desperate to stop her own creation. On top of that, it's an explanation that reinforces the central narrative. The Scars are a team of scientists who wind up being unwitting participants in a horrific experiment, so we are given an explanation rooted in the scientific method. Scars Above is truly a statistical outlier. There's a clunkiness inherent to a fair amount of the gameplay and animations. While none of it breaks the experience entirely, or even plays out that much differently from a lot of AAA releases these days, it manages to tell a story that rises above most of the competition. Giving so many aspects of the game an in-universe, science-based explanation is a level of cohesion that is practically unheard of. Taken as a whole, it's a good reminder that entertainment doesn't have to be flawless for it to be, well, entertaining. So if you've played Scars Above, what did you think of it? Let me know in the comments. And as always, play what you love and love what you play.